Well, it's a lovely day today. It's actually 31 degrees in this greenhouse at the minute, and I can really feel spring is on its way. So welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, Mother Nature Part 6. This is where we're going to start talking a little bit more about insecticides and controlling pests rather than soil preparation. And what I want to talk to you about today is garlic. Now, garlic is a really useful thing to use in the garden because you can use it in quite a few ways. Now, garlic can be used to get rid of aphids, ants, termites, beetles, caterpillars, slugs, armyworms, carrot fly, root maggots, Japanese beetles. And there's another load of sort of insects and critters that you can get rid of with garlic. But ants, it particularly works well with. Carrot root fly particularly works well with, and aphids. The way you do this basically is it's really simple to do. All you got to do is get yourself some garlic cloves. Get yourself 4 or 5 garlic cloves and crush them in a garlic press into a jam jar. Fill the jam jar full of warm water. And just put a dash of washing up liquid in there, put the top on, give it a good shake, and over sort of 2 or 3 hours of time, give it a shake every half an hour or so and make sure, and basically what's happening is that soap is then absorbing all of the oil out of the garlic and diffusing it into that water. As soon as you've done that, all you've got to do then is put that, you can dilute it again down sort of 4 to 1 if you like, into a spray. And then spray that on any infected areas. So if you see ants, don't put ant powder down because that's not organic. Get yourself some garlic, get it in a make yourself a batch up, and spray all the ants, and you'll soon sort them out. And aphids and sort of termites, beetles, anything like that. If you do it and spray them on. The other thing you can do with garlic is you can make up the mixture in exactly the same way. And again, dilute it down probably 6 to 1. You know what you got in your jam jar. If you've got a jam jar full of this sort of garlic mixture, you could make up sort of 4 or 5 watering cans full of it and water the ground, and that will also sort them out as well. So you don't have to spray it; you can actually water it on. Carrot root fly, it works really well with, and you can do it just by spraying round the ground, and where you got your carrots, and it'll stop it. The one thing that you need to be careful of is obviously the garlic can flavour the plant. So what I would suggest is, if you're going to harvest the plant or the fruit within a month, don't spray it with garlic, because what you can do is taint the sort of the taste of the fruit or the vegetable or whatever. So if you have got a problem with aphids, for example, on your tomatoes or wherever, don't use garlic if you're about to pick them. This is where you can use the limonene, or you can use just soapy water or whatever to get rid of the aphids in that time. Obviously, ants, you don't really worry about ants being on plant. It's more around the paths and stuff like that, so you can put that on any time. But if you've got any vegetables where you've got beans, for example, where you've got black fly or anything like that, by all means spray them with garlic. But if you're going to pick the beans within a month of you spraying, you might get a slight flavour of garlic in the plant, so just be wary of that, because it will penetrate into the plant. Basically the method, as I say, make up about half a litre of the stuff, spray it on, water it on. You can also plant garlic next to plants that are susceptible to pests. So what you can do is, if you've got carrots, you can grow garlic next to them, and that will also deter the carrot whitefly. It doesn't get rid of it, but it will deter it. I have used this method in the past, and I haven't found it particularly successful. But this is called sort of intercropping with garlic, and what you can do is grow garlic next to plants which are susceptible to aphids, ants and things like this, and that will help you out. However, I've found it much more better, because I don't grow garlic myself anyway, to be honest with you. I don't find that I've got better uses for the ground than growing garlic, but you're much better off to either water it or spray it on rather than trying to grow it, because that's a lot more effective than just growing it nearby. So I hope that's been of some use to you. If you do use garlic, I know some of the subscribers have already put some notes on there, and you've said that you've used it in the past. But please let me know, and please put any comments if you've had any successes or not. But garlic's a very universal thing that you can use against a lot of things, really. So if you're not sure, just spray it on anyway. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I hope that's been of some use to you, and that's all about garlic. So this is Mother Nature Part 7, and in today's garden chemistry section, what I'd like to talk about are naturally occurring fungi which exist in the ground, and these are called Mycorrhizal Fungi. Now these are a life form. It's not a plant or an animal. It's a fungi. They're kind of halfway between the two, and they have a symbiotic association between themselves and a plant. So basically, what happens is this fungi will colonate the roots of a plant. What the fungus needs is the carbohydrate, the sugars from the plant. So what happens is the plant will provide the fungi with carbohydrate, which is obviously it's full of in its roots, and in return the fungus will provide minerals and water to the plant, and it's almost like an extension of the roots. So if you imagine, if you've got a plant and you've got its roots sort of coming out at the bottom, the fungi will then extend the plant's roots out, in some cases to a factor of 700. So if you imagine, if you've got a plant that's got sort of this many roots, the fungus, obviously because it's a large living creature, if you like. It's not really a creature or a plant, it's kind of halfway between the two. But because these fungi live within the ground, and it's sort of goes all out in the ground, you can actually increase the area where minerals can be passed to the plant by up to 700. These fungi, obviously, they're not man-made. It's Mother Nature at its best, and they naturally occur in the ground. But for the fungi to exist, you also need a plant. There's this symbiotic. The fungi cannot make its own carbohydrate, its own sugar. So for the fungus to live, it needs a plant to provide that carbohydrate. Obviously the plant can survive on its own because it can get its own nutrients, but the fungi will provide the plant with minerals and water from wherever the fungi actually goes. So these are really powerful things that you can use within your allotment garden. But obviously, if you've got, like this time of the year, the ground is bare and you've got no plants in there, then obviously there's nothing to feed the fungi in the ground. So even though it will be existing in the ground, this stuff exists all over the world in the ground. But obviously, if you go to forest land or sort of gardens where the plants are constantly there, it will be in abundance. It will be all in the ground and everywhere. So when you see these gardens that are really well established and the plants are really healthy and stuff like that, you can almost bet your bottom dollar that the ground is full of mycorrhizal fungi, because that's feeding all of these plants. So in an allotment, you kind of have to sort of help it along a little bit. You need to reintroduce it into the ground when you put your plants. Now, it's a truly sustainable plant nutritional solution. So you can put it in the ground and you can guarantee that it'll form with the plant and it will feed the plant and the plant will feed it. But the relationship that you have between the two means that you will have considerably healthier plants, bigger yield, better flowers, better fruits, better root system and everything. So it is something, you know, really to consider. They're not particularly expensive to buy. You can buy a small bag, which I'll show you in a moment. A small bag of it, which you know, you use it quite sparingly. You know, you only really need to put a little teaspoon in with with whatever you're growing, like I showed you with the fruit trees, and so a bag kind of this big costs about £10. So that's 10 UK pounds. That's probably about I don't know the exchange rate today, but about $8 or something like that. And as I say, what you do is when you put in your plant in the ground, where the roots are going to be, or where the roots are, all you need to do is just sprinkle, just literally half a teaspoon, you know, just sort of five millilitres of it on the ground under the plant. Then plant the plant on top of it, and then as the plant starts to put its roots down, the mycorrhizal fungi will also grow, and it'll connect with the plant. They'll colonise each other, and then the fungi will help the plant to grow and bring all the minerals and the water to the plant. Doesn't work with every plant. There are certain plants that it doesn't work with. The main ones that you need to consider, most certainly in allotment, are brassicas and plants that are associated with brassicas, like beets. So things like cabbage, cauliflower, sprouts, and stuff like that, it doesn't work with. Plants like beetroot, things like turnips and things like that, it won't work with. But what it will work with really well are things like parsnips, carrots, potatoes in particular, and in any sort of shrub. So if you're putting in new trees like I'm doing at the moment, or if you're putting in raspberries, strawberries, or any sort of fruit, bush or tree, I would strongly recommend that you put in some with the plant. As you plant it in the ground, put your mycorrhizal fungi in the ground with it, and then you can guarantee that the plant's colonised, and then that will feed your plant for you and do most of the work for you. So it is a really good thing to do, even though it's slightly expensive, you know, sort of £10 for a bag like that. It is well worth it, because the difference between doing it and not are quite sort of quite large. So I strongly recommend, if you're putting in trees or if you're putting in bushes or anything like that, then I would strongly recommend that you use it, because it does make a massive difference. Now there are other plants that it doesn't work particularly well with. Things like heathers, blueberries, cranberry bushes. It just doesn't work with them. So, you know, if you're planting those types of bushes or anything like that, it's and obviously in an allotment you're more likely to put in sort of cranberries and blueberries. It doesn't work, so don't bother putting it in. So when I put the trees in the new bit which I was explaining in the last episode, I'll be putting it in the trees, I'll be putting it in the jostaberry bushes, but when I put the blueberry bushes in, I shan't be bothering, because it doesn't work. You don't have to buy it, you can make it yourself, and what I'll be doing is it's actually Mother Nature Part 14, I'll explain to you how to actually make it. You can't make it this time of the year really, but, well, I suppose you could, but you're much better off waiting until the spring, you know, when you're likely to be putting things in, and you can actually make it yourself. Because it's a fungus, it's a living organism, you can extract it from the ground, and by putting in your own starch, you can actually grow the mycorrhizal fungi yourself. It's not heinously easy to do it. It's reasonably easy to do it, but you need to follow some steps to grow. But what I'll be doing, I don't really want to put it all in one episode, because that bit's a little bit more complicated. What I'll do is I'll put out, as I say, Mother Nature Garden Chemistry Part 14, which will be coming up in the next few weeks. I'll explain to you how you can actually make it for yourself. So if you put in any bushes, and obviously, you know, you're going to be putting fertiliser and everything in the ground with it. You know, you'd be putting muck, or you'd be putting sort of organic material in there. That will obviously help your bushes on, but that will not help in any way as much as putting mycorrhizal fungi in. If you want to see a few examples, obviously the last episode I showed you the fruit trees, me putting it in the pots whilst I was potting them up. I also used it with the grapevines last year. So if you go back to the one, it's like a fawn coloured label with that one, and it says all about grapevines. If you watch that, you'll see me put it in the ground there as well, if you want to see another example. As soon as you've bought it, it will last up to 12 months. What you can do is that you can buy a bag of it, and you can sort of use it sparingly where you need it. You only need to put, as I say, you need to put sort of 5 millilitres, like a teaspoon, half a teaspoon in the ground. That's more than enough to start it off. And put that in, reseal the bag or the container, and if you keep that in your fridge, it will keep up to 12 months. And you can just bring it out as and when you need it. This year I intend to use it on the potatoes, or at least some of the potatoes, because I've never used it on potatoes before, to be honest with you. But what I want to do this year is a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to put it on probably half the potatoes, and the other half not, and I'm going to compare the results. And what I'm going to do is weigh up the cost of doing it with the yield, and then the yield without doing it, and see the difference, and see if it's financially worth doing if I'm actually buying it. So that's a little experiment I'm going to be looking at later on. And obviously I'll also be talking about the if it's cost effective to do it, because obviously what you don't want to do is put in the cost of actually putting it in, and then you do get an increase in the yield, but it's not worth the the cost of it. But I would imagine in sort of 5 rows of potatoes, I'm probably going to use probably about £4 worth in value. So I'm probably going to use out of the bag probably about £4 worth. So if the yield, if I'm sort of halving the yield again, or even doubling the yield again, it's going to be worth it. Because if you think, at the moment in the UK, I'm not quite sure about America and other parts of the world, but in the UK at the moment, if you go to supermarkets, a 2.5 kilo bag of potatoes is about £2. So it's about 80p a kilo. Even though the cost of potatoes has come down, funnily enough, this year, I'm digressing slightly now, sorry, last year a metric ton of potatoes from the farm was £200. This year it's actually gone down to £35 because the yield was so high last year. So the market price of potatoes has really plummeted. However, as the consumers, you and I, we're not seeing that in the shops. They're in fact actually more expensive this year, and the supermarkets are buying them for probably about an eighth of the cost of what they were last year, or a seventh of the cost of they were last year. But if you consider us as the end users, if we're paying say £1 for a kilo of potatoes, what I'll be doing is sort of weighing that up against, and if I get, for example, another 4 kilos of potatoes out of those 5 rows, which to be honest with you is quite easy, then that's paid for the mycorrhizal fungi. If I'm getting obviously another 20 kilos out, so another sack of potatoes out, then it's more than worthwhile. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest with you. I think it's well worth putting it in the ground. But what I want to do, to be fair, is what I want to do is do five rows with and 5 rows without, and I'm going to compare the yield between the two, so I can let you know how we get on, and then we can all go out and buy some or make some mycorrhizal fungi for next year. So that's all about the fungi, really. There's not really much more to say. There's quite a lot of information out on this. It's not been used widely. Farmers are using it now and have been for a few years. It's only really become reasonably popular in the last sort of, I don't know, 10 years or so. And I think more and more people are now sort of understanding that they can increase the yields from the ground. Having said that, what you need to consider is, because the fungi is taking all of the minerals out of the ground, what you do need to consider is you need to put more minerals back. At the end of the day, this is all about equilibrium and sort of keeping things balanced, which is all about organic gardening. So what you need to be doing is, if you're getting bigger yields, you need to be putting more muck back in, because basically it's the same with everything in life. What you put in is what you get out. If you don't put back in and a bit more what you've taken out, you're not going to sustainably have that yield in the ground. So to start off with, the minerals have to be in the ground. and then this fungi this mycorrhizal fungi is going to help your plants to get those minerals out of the ground to form its roots or its fruits or whatever. So it doesn't replace fertiliser in any way, shape or form. It just helps your plant to absorb that. So you still need to be putting your organic material in there. You still need to be putting your banana skins in there, and you still need to be putting your your muck and your compost and digging that in, because that's where the minerals are coming from. So it doesn't replace fertiliser. What it does is it helps plants to absorb those minerals and absorb the water from the ground to enable the plants to process those minerals and to form everything that we want to eat from there. So that's all about mycorrhizal fungi. I hope that's been of use to you. Okay, there's one extra note which I didn't really think about when I was doing the last section. So just to fill you in, mycorrhizal fungi have got a secondary function within the ground, which is useful for your plants. In the ground, I'm always talking about considering the ground as being a living organism, and in there's a mixture of bacteria and all these good things. Some of them are good, some of them are bad for your plants, and obviously, sort of working with Mother Nature, what you want to do is minimise the bad ones and increase the good ones, so you're getting good yields, etc. Now, the bad ones, which are the ones that cause diseases in the ground, basically that we call pathogens. These are bacteria and microscopic organisms which live within the ground, and these cause problems to plants. These are the things that can cause, say, clubroot or for an example, that's possibly not a brilliant example, but these are things that your plant is constantly fighting against to live, just like we have colds and flus and bugs and stuff like that. These things, just like for us, for plants, they exist in the ground. And mycorrhizal fungi have got a secondary function, not only supplying the plant with nutrients, minerals and water, so you don't have to water as much if you've got mycorrhizal fungi in there. It'll survive drought a lot better. But the one other important thing that mycorrhizal fungi do is they actually destroy these pathogens which are in the ground. So if you've got any bugs or whatever in the ground, and they exist everywhere, these things, I mean, the ground is a living organism. You're feeding it with all your fertiliser and stuff like that, and then your plants are feeding off it. It's a living organism. That's how you need to think about the ground. But in there, obviously, there's good and bad, and the mycorrhizal fungi will have the effect of killing or at least reducing the pathogens which are inside the ground, and which will again give you healthier plants, not only stronger and better fed plants, but also stronger plants, because there's less for the plant to fight from a pathogen point of view. So again, this is a secondary benefit of using mycorrhizal fungi in the ground when you're growing vegetables and other fruit bearing plants and trees. So I hope this episode has been of some use to you. There's going to be a lot more Mother Nature garden chemistry stuff coming up, as I've already said. What I want to do is, whilst we've got this sort of quiet period, the season really for gardening is going to start in about 3 weeks' time. So towards the end of February. That's when we can expect the weather to be sort of dry and warm enough to get out there and really get your spade in the ground and start sorting your plots and your gardens out. So in the next few weeks, what I want to be doing is rattling through the Mother Nature garden chemistry parts to arm you with all the information that you need for sort of tackling any disease or growing your plants in a better way. So what I'll be doing is putting as much as them out. There will be some more which I'm probably going to record in the next few weeks, and what I'll do is I'll sort of intersperse them. I'll record them now and then I can intersperse them later on in the coming videos. But thank you for watching Jim's Allotment Garden. I do appreciate all of the comments and people subscribing that have done so far. There's plenty more coming, as I say, and we're going to be doing some more stuff in the garage in the near future, because there's some more sort of construction-y type work which I know you enjoy watching as well, to improve the infrastructure of the allotment. I'm going to be looking at the tunnels, and I'm going to be updating the fence where the raspberries are at the moment to take the fruit trees. There's going to be all that sort of things on, and I've also got another few things sort of ideas. Don't want to give too much away at the moment, to build for the allotment. A couple of them are decorative sort of points of interest, like the wind vane, but you know, quite nice to have in the allotment. There are some other functional things like the parsnip propagator, which I've got in the pipeline as well to show you, to make things easier in your allotment, which are easy to build. You know, that'll be coming up in the next few weeks. But anyway, thank you to everybody again for watching and supporting this channel, and I'll see you on the next edition of Jim's Allotment Garden.